This is the third in our series on dam removals in the community of Baraboo, Wisconsin. In this video, we interview Joe Van Berkel. Joe is a retired Sauk County conservationist and an avid paddler. Joe is a member of the Baraboo Canoe Club. Joe and the club were instrumental in helping to remove the dams.
Well, we're here with Joe Van Berkel, who is a retired Sauk County conservationist and was an avid paddler, and has been involved with the discussion over the Baraboo Dam since its inception, which has got to be in the 90s. Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about how before late 80s we were talking about it? Tell us a little bit about your role and how you had an impact on this.
Came into town as a paddler and was active with a bunch of friends, just doing regular trips down the river paddling, and worked for the county conservation department. One of my co-workers was with the Soil Conservation Service, and he's the first one who mentioned to me, "You guys are paddling all the time. Do you realize how good the Baraboo River would be for paddling purposes if they took out the dams?" That was a real enlightenment behind, never even considered that you could take out dams, you know. But then he talked about, wow, it's Baraboo Rapids, history, things like that. So we just carried on that conversation for a while and then started getting active on bringing it up to the guys who I paddled with and talked about it. We had already done years of river cleanup, did an annual river cleanup project. We had been asked to do a canoe race as part of the Zuku Days. That was event in the park, Oshner Park. They were trying to bring more people in, so they added a music venue down below, added volleyball competition. They thought a canoe race would be a good part of it, so they came to us. We had always called ourselves the Baraboo River Canoe Club, but basically it was the same six guys who got together and paddled and, used the title when we thought a title was appropriate to bring people in to help clean up and things like that. So,
but at the same time, you're building a constituency with those community events.
Yeah, and that one especially, when they asked us to do the river race, we would get 40, 50 people sign up for that, and people who had never paddled it in their time in town and started to participate, and yeah, that really helped. So then when Dean Steinhorst, who was the technician for the Soil Conservation Service, brought up the dam removal, we started throwing that idea out, and he was also on the Parks Board at the time. So that connected with the Oshner, which is a fundraiser for the Parks Department. He also was active on the city council at the time, and then eventually became mayor, which then spurred the utility department or utility commission to look at, they were the owner of the waterworks dam, and to look at that as a potential to get rid of that dam. And that was the first one. That was the one by Circus World, and that was the effort to remove that was to the utility commission. Dave Lawrence, who was the head of it at the time, and the staff, and Audrey Bernhardt, who was the representative of the commission lead. We were added. DNR jumped on board then. River Alliance jumped on board. A lot of organizations saw the benefit. DNR was a school president. And so Dean at that time had been elected mayor, retired from Soil Conservation Service, was elected mayor, and he kind of agreed to take on the economic aspects of dam removal and really preach that. I, on the other hand, did the environmental front and the benefits of dam removal. And as Mike said earlier, the key to that was just getting on every agenda you could. All the civic groups, all the clubs, all the organizations. You want to talk on the river? Because we were dealing with all the opposition, historical opposition, the stinking mud flats, ducks that had disappeared, fish that had disappeared. So we did that
That's
sort
the same
of,
as it always has.
yeah, change.
Yep.
Change is tough.
And reading through your clipping file, I was struck by how many of those arguments were exactly the same as you saw in West Bend when the Warren Wells Dam was talking about, the Merrill, the Ward Dam, even up in Eagle River on the Deerskin River, the Colfax, Wilmer, Tecatonica, you know, the same discussions go on with the same topic. And, you know, and they're impassioned. But eventually, I think in a lot of cases, it's pure economics with a dose of the environmental side.
Exactly.
And
I always say that Dean took on the economic aspect, I took on the environmental. The one that swayed the decision is the economics.
Well, and you know, I think that what happens is that once you get past that decision and the dam gets removed and people get a free-flowing river out of it, then people appreciate the environmental side of it. And in Baraboo, I think what I see with the Riverwalk is that people see other benefits besides the purely environmental benefits of the river.
Oh, yeah.
And you kind of got rid of the economic millstone. You're past that, and you can see the environmental benefits, but you also have a new community asset you didn't have before.
I bet 95% of the people that you see using the river walk do not fish and do not paddle.
Yes.
They are there because the river's beautiful, because of the ducks, the geese, the wildflowers, all the other things that are along that river corridor, not because of the river itself. They don't use the water, but they use the corridor.
It's a good point. It's a good point. I know that I was struck in River Falls during the course of that 5 years that you did have a lot of people who weren't river users who wanted to appreciate the river corridor without necessarily floating or fishing. I appreciate that.
And you know, those I think are some of the hardest ones to enlighten on the benefits or what the river will be like when the dam is up. They love a still pond. One of the arguments I used back when we were really in the thick of it was that it's our own innate nature to be easier to accept calm, still water versus flowing water. It puts a little fear in you. I'm not going to be washed away. Our kids can be washed away. There was an argument about, you know, a lot of kids are going to play on the river, but they're going to drown. Well, you know, I don't know that there's any more incidents of drowning in the rapids versus the stills.
Do you think low-head dams are safe? For your kids to play by? That's right. I hear what you're saying.
They go strolling across the top of that door.
So what you're talking about is some things that are rather deep-seated emotional sorts of things. They're not necessarily borne out by the experience once you get to the end of it. I like the way that folks have groups have worked on parts of the aftermath of the dam removal in a sort of an incremental, as we can do it kind of fashion. We're going to keep plugging away at this with a long-term eye to what this is going to bring to the city of Baraboo and the river.
Yeah, we're 19 years out from the removal of the last of the dams. 19 years later. We had an initiative to do the river corridor communities. Yeah, we had that going 10, 15 years ago, because I've been retired 10. So it's 15 years ago at least. Now.
Yeah. Well, and that's got a lot of potential too. I think that if you look at other connected trail systems around the state, whether you're in Three Lakes or Elroy or on Alaska, or the Glarus. Those are, on the Chippewa River trails now, I think they've connected 80 miles of that. So I think that's something that we boomers, as long as we're active, we're probably going to be able to do it. We'll see what happens next. But I like talking with Mike about eventually using some of these sites that are going to be available along the river for things that the city can benefit from and residents.
That strategic plan shows a lot of that. Nice areas for development that's available, things like that.
Is it a citywide strategic plan or a river-centric one?
It is river-centric, and but it covered beyond Baraboo, stretched up into West Baraboo also, and a little bit each way on the river. Then the city took that and used it to pass an overlay district along the river, so there's restrictions on development on the river in regards to windows and colors and things, to build a uniform nature along the river.
Yeah. And now you know the Cadland. What do you know about the Cadland community in your? Is it all local folks?
No, there's a lot of Madison people because it's the easiest access to some decent traffic. So it gets a real strong visitation from the Madison folks, weekenders, the Mad City paddlers are up here for a couple of events per year. And then the rest, so there's the Roller group, the Madison paddlers, and then the tourists who are here at Devil's Lake and bring boats to do the lake, and then here that the river is also a resource. And then the weekenders who are on the liveries are taking the trips out of the North Freedom delivery.
How many liveries do you have on the river?
Right now, there's only one operating again. Well, there's a second one up in Waterway, but just one in the Baraboo region.
Okay.
And then there's you can get. It's not a real official livery, but you can rent cruise from the rental down the way. And there's one that's in Reedsburg also.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of water that's available for paddling. That's the Lower Kinney has been developed as a kayaking operation. It's ripple pool for 67 miles down to the takeout at the Kinney River State Park. And above the upper impoundment, going up probably 4 or 5 miles up to almost to the freeway, to 94. There's more use each year. It's smaller water, but it's really infinite, and it's not water that needs to be only used. It's only available for use in the runoff in the spring. There are people on it most of the season. So I'm not sure what the upper end of paddling development is. I know that there's a problem with access sites for paddlers. You're going to be scrambling in a lot of places on the upper river, and we'll want to put access sites in where the lower impoundment was, as we get a trail along there, and then people can put in there and go down all the way through the canyon. As we were talking with Doug and with Mike, were there things that you thought, these might, the other things that you thought might be good lessons for us up at the falls?
Yeah, they did a lot of the good ones. So they're documenting this, they're getting civic organizations involved, or the buy-in. The events, they touched on it a little bit, but I think those were really important. That Bill Jug Regatta, that brought a lot of people down to the river. It was a fun event. It was kind of foolish because, we were getting pretty beaten up on the rocks. Yeah. But we had a lot of people show up, and
Your
we had a
usually
parade down the street. Yeah, many of them do. But yeah, just the events at the same time. We had the walleyes for tomorrow rolled up and gave away fishing poles and fishing licenses to the kids. We had the DNR crews here shocking fish, so people could learn from that. Putting together some of those events to celebrate the children. You know? It is change. It's hard for people to accept, but if there's something good attached to it, and get together and event, learning something, took us a long way, I think. Good. And then the groups, just getting groups involved. The civic group. Yeah. Civic or club. Yeah.
One thing that we only touched on tangentially was schools and college.
Oh, yeah. We did have real good with our river cleanup, which we did, for 25 consecutive years before we got to the point where we decided the river's so clean, there's nothing to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And because we had always really promoted it to the kids, exposing them at the schools. The last couple of years we did it, we had 125 kids show up.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't enough trash to keep them busy anymore. But
what a problem they have.
Yeah, it was great exposure for these kids to,
Mm-hmm.
And we worked with the biology teachers and they got points for it, which helped their grades or needed extra credit activities.
Did you have any programs that either sort of monitored the natural world of the rivers? In other words, keep an eye on the insects.
We had the STEM group from the 2-year campus in town.
Yeah.
Was doing river monitoring, and the high schools worked with us on river monitoring on the river itself and a lot of the feeder streams, because we did have a couple of priority watershed projects on the Berkel River. Oh, it's kind of what started a lot of my interest. My work was in the priority watershed for the Berkel River. Sure. And yeah, so we have a real strong affiliate in the science department at the Berkeley School. We got her kids out doing a lot of monitoring for us.
It is important, isn't it, to have somebody who is an advocate for those kinds of programs within a school?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Those folks are great allies.
I wouldn't have the time in the position I was in, and they would commit to it.
Yeah.
And the teachers taking it all and working with them and teaching them, well, you can just see them light up and they scoop up that first bundle of detritus and start seeing that there's actually activity in there. And like, yeah, that's a great experience. We've got stronger environmental character in this community. We've got big conservancy on a large having a lot of the very blocks, but always having offices. We've got the Stan Power Foundation active in the county. The Alva Leopold Foundation, Southern and South County, and the Green Foundation. So you've got a real strong contingent of environmentally oriented people